Hello and welcome back to the Keep Right On podcast. I'm Alex Dicken, and as ever I'm joined by my co-host and colleague Brian Dick, and today we are joined by the sports editor of the Barnsley Chronicle, Doug O'Kane, to preview the game against Barnsley on Saturday at Oakwell. Doug, thank you for coming on. How are you doing?
Yeah, no problem. Yeah, I'm fine, thanks. How are you?
Lovely, thanks. We'll get straight into it. Barnsley this weekend for Birmingham City. Doug, I believe it's eighth in League One. Barnsley are at the moment, so it is third against eighth. How have Barnsley been getting on this season, and what were the expectations of Barnsley at the outset? What will they expect to achieve this season?
I think the expectations for Barnsley always when they're at the third tier is to at least compete for promotion. Ideally, obviously, get it, and they've been in the playoffs the previous two seasons, come very close. So, yeah, the expectations were to try and get promoted again. They're not too far off course for that. I think 3 points off. I'd say overall the season's been probably slightly under expectations so far without being sort of a disaster or anything. They've been playing pretty well recently without getting the results. I think they're winless in 5, which is really disappointing. But they have been playing well. They're missing a lot of chances, and their home form's a bit of an issue. But they had a real wobble sort of September, October when they were playing quite poorly, and then they turned that around in the international break in October. And since then, their performances have been a lot better. So I think there is a belief within the club that they can finish in the top 6, but this run at the moment is a little bit worrying, and it needs to end soon if they're not going to fall quite a lot further adrift of the top 6.
What's been going wrong for them in the last few games then?
Yeah, I think Wrexham on Tuesday, there was nothing in the game really. It was quite a fairly dull game with no real chances for either side, apart from a few long-range shots, maybe one decent chance each, and then Wrexham scored in the last minute, and it was pretty gutting for Barnsley. But before that, they had 3 or 4 games where they were creating loads of chances and just missing them. I think they had 3 home games in a week and they had 70 shots and scored twice, which is obviously very disappointing. And that was the main issue, really. They were creating chances, defending pretty solidly, but I think there's no secret that they probably need to strengthen their striker options in January. They have got some good players up front, but collectively they're probably just not taking enough chances, and that's kind of down to the midfielders and defenders as well. It's a team effort, and they're not been scoring enough goals. So that was the big issue. The other one probably is home form. Like I mentioned, they've only won 2 in 9 at home this season, which for a promotion challenger isn't good enough. And going all the way back to sort of February, they've got 15 points in 15 games at home, which for Barnsley in League One is very frustrating for the fans. So they're probably the 2 main issues at the moment.
In my experience of Darrell Clarke, he does tend to favour a 3-5-2 or 3 at the back system, doesn't he? Is that how he's gone at Barnsley this season as well? Yeah,
that's the system they've mainly been playing. They did sort of tweak around with a few other ones early on when they was trying to find their feet, because he came in. There was quite a new squad, a lot of big players left from last season who'd been at the club for a long time and had quite a lot of success. Sort of, I think 6 of the top 7 appearance makers from last season all left, so it's quite a new squad, and he's obviously a new manager, kind of finding his feet. They made some signings late in the window, so it was a bit sort of scrabbling around for the right answers in terms of formation and personnel and everything else. But on that sort of international break that I mentioned, where they sort of turned things around a bit, after that, they've pretty much used 3-5-2 most of the time, and that has generally led to an improvement in performances.
Yeah, you've got a whole bunch of ex-Blues players at Barnsley. You've obviously got Marc Roberts, Sam Cosgrove, who joined last year, and also Corey O'Keefe, who came through the club's academy. I wanted to ask you about Marc Roberts. He does seem tailor-made for that role in the middle of the back 3 at Barnsley. And I think how has he been getting on this season? How has he been doing?
Yeah, he's done well. In my opinion, if I was going to do a sort of player of the year now, he'd be right up there in the mix for it. He probably came back and in the first month or so was a bit shaky, but I think that's because, I mean, you'll know better than me, but I don't think he really played much at all for Birmingham last season, so it's a little bit rusty, I think. But after that, he's been really solid. Like you say, he suits that middle of the back 3 role really well. He defended well. He just has games where there's so many crosses and balls into the box, and he just seems to be on the end of them all. But also, I think Barnsley really lacked experience in the last few years. They've had a policy of signing very, very young players and developing them. Obviously, Roberts is, I think, 34 now, played a lot of games at a pretty high level, and he's just got that personality of a sort of leadership figure. He's from Barnsley as well, so he's got that sort of passion for his hometown, and I think that's been big. You can see it in games where he's sort of scored last-minute equalisers or assisted them and dragged the team back into matches. Been really important. So, yeah, that kind of leadership sort of battling spirit, as well as his good performances in defence, have been really crucial. And I think he scored 4 goals as well.
You mentioned that you think Barnsley will go in for a striker in January. Probably tells me Sam Cosgrove hasn't exactly done the business goal scoring wise. Is that fair to say? How's he been getting on?
Yeah, strange one, because I think his goal record in the league is something like 4 in 46, and then he scored 3 in 2 in the playoffs last season and looked incredible. Really, really troubled Bolton in those playoff games, and even though Barnsley lost, we thought, right, well, he's had a tough first season, but he's done really well in the playoffs. He probably kick on next season. He scored quite early on, but he hasn't scored since. I think it's 13 games, and mainly they've been off the bench. He's just never really been able to force his way into the league team for like a long run of starts. And yeah, I think it'd be fair to say performances haven't been what everyone wanted. He's struggled so far for most of his Barnsley career, but I imagine he will probably have a chance off the bench this weekend. So that's another opportunity, and all the strikers will be looking to kind of cement their place in the squad with potentially some changes in January.
One thing that I wanted to ask you, Doug, there's kind of a bit of a running joke on Blues Twitter, or X if it's called that now, about the midfield of Barnsley versus the midfield of Blues. I think Barnsley fans are saying that their midfield options are better than what Blues have in Peckham and Wata. Can you talk to me about the Barnsley midfield a little bit and tell me how good they are, please?
Yeah, very good. Adam Phillips and Luke O'Connell are probably the players that the Barnsley fans are talking about, and sort of in that 3 seasons where they've got to the playoffs, the last 2 seasons, I think they've definitely been up there with 2 of the best midfielders in the league. Kind of different players. Connell's more the sort of holding midfielder, the number 6 as it would be called these days, and then Adam Phillips is more an attacking midfielder, scores quite a lot of goals. I think he got 6 early on. He's on a bit of a more barren streak recently, but he's a real threat from sort of the edge of the box. So, yeah, I mean, that Barnsley's midfield has been really strong for a number of years. I don't know enough about Birmingham to compare them to your midfielders. Obviously, they've done exceptionally well this season. I have seen that online, but yeah, I mean, Phillips and Connell on their day are definitely up there with the best midfielders in the Championship, in the League One, sorry. And John Russell as well. He's also been playing the Jamaica international, forms that at the moment has been forming the other member of the midfield 3. He's had a good season coming in sort of out of the cold, really. And then they've also got an option of Kelechi Nwakali, the Nigerian international. He's not started in the league yet, but the glimpses we have seen, he looks a really good passer and good on the ball. So they have got really exciting options in that area of the pitch.
Lovely. Brian, anything to add before we let Doug get on his way?
Yeah, Doug, can I just ask, are we expecting to see a barrage of long throws from Marc Roberts on Saturday?
Yes, I would. Well, that's part of their arsenal, definitely. I mean, set pieces in general, they've got Conor Hourihane, who obviously you'll know from playing at Villa. He signed as signed as a player coach, but he's been not really a player, only a coach, really. And he's the set piece coach, I suppose. He's the first team coach, but he works on attacking set pieces, and their throw-ins and their corners and their set pieces have been really good under him, and they've been much better in that area than last season. Corey O'Keefe takes them from right-footed corners, and Luke O'Connell left-footed, and they've been really dangerous. And Roberts' throws as well have been another part of that. They've used them quite well. So, yeah, he does take quite a lot of long throws. Not every single one. It's not sort of like they vary it up a bit, but yeah, I'm sure he will take a few long throws.
You can't be mentioning Arsenal and set pieces in the same sentence, Doug.
Right. Lovely. Thank you very much, Doug. Appreciate you coming on the pod, and thanks for your insight into Barnsley. Hopefully, Blues do win the midfield battle on Saturday. We'll let you get going now. Thanks very much.
Thanks,
All
Doug.
right, no problem.
Barnsley, one of the most direct teams in League One. Only Charlton and Rotherham show it better statistically in terms of aerial balls won this season. So what I was going to ask, do you think there's a case for Lyndon Dykes to start this game? Because he obviously had an impact as a sub against Stockport in terms of holding the ball and would add a little bit more of physical presence. Blues are already quite a sizable team, aren't they? They've got 3 or 4 players over 6'2". So is there an argument to throw him into the mix?
I think what it definitely settles is that you want Bielik, Davis and Clara in the side. So that might mean that slightly offset back 3, with Bielik as the right back, inverted commas, and Cochrane going forward. I think Lyndon Dykes is probably pushing for a start anyway. I mean, we were kicking around a content idea yesterday, weren't we, about Dykes' effect off the bench, his versatility. Obviously, he played in a slightly different role at Blackpool when he started than he did when he came off the bench against who did they play the other night?
Stockport the other night.
Against Stockport the other night. That substitution of him being up there and tying up the defenders and winning a few knockdowns, that really changed the narrative of the game for me. So I think, to answer your question, I think he would have a claim anyway. Specifically for this game, potentially, if he's, you would worry about Alfie or Jay playing number 9 against 3 centre backs. Not worry, but you know what I mean. It wouldn't necessarily lend itself to their physical skill set. I think Dykes could well create space if he can tie up a couple of those defenders. Yeah, I'd definitely be open-minded about that. But I mean, the big issue is going to be replacing Keshi Anderson, if you want to move on to that yet.
Yeah, I mean, just there, though, you've kind of talked me around to bringing Dykes into my preferred 11 because of the 3 centre-backs issue. When Jay Stansfield has come up against 3 centre-backs, he hasn't, always done that well. And Alfie, I don't think I remember him coming up against 3 centre-backs that often because he hasn't played as a striker since the start of the season, really. But again, I'm not sure it would suit his skill set either, would it really? But yeah, moving on to replacing Keshi Anderson. I did a piece yesterday and I was thinking of the options who could come in. Ethan Laird, Taylor Gardner-Hickman, Luke Harris. Speaking to Chris Davies at his press conference on Thursday, he kind of listed the same options. Yeah. Laird feels the most natural fit to me because of the system. I'm not saying he's the most natural fit because he'd be a right back playing as a right winger, wouldn't he? But if you look at the system and the way Blues set up in possession, it's effectively a back 3 with 2 attacking wide players, one of whom is now Cochrane, and Laird has been playing the other role for most of this season, so he's very well used to it, isn't he? I just think that's the natural fit for me. I think bringing Harris in would kind of make it a little bit awkward with Bielik being the right back. It wouldn't quite fit, would it? Yokoyama could do it.
I was going to say Yokoyama.
He does hold the width. He holds the width, but I think he's more of a natural off the left, isn't he? So again, Laird just feels the one.
Yokoyama can go both ways. We've said that about him. He's. I mean, I don't think he's actually. You'd say he's necessarily just left-footed because I don't think he is he?
No,
no.
He's right-footed, isn't he?
If anything, he's right-footed.
Yeah.
Which in the modern world, without going back to my old hobby course about inverted wingers, that probably discounts him from being a right-footed right winger, doesn't it? They do need to hold width. You're absolutely right. Harris wouldn't necessarily be sort of tailored to that role. I don't know that I'd necessarily see Gardner-Hickman playing that far forward.
No.
It would be quite an interesting experiment if they go Laird. It really, playing sort of not absolving him of defensive responsibility, but putting him in a bit of space, and then we really would, have a real focus on the quality of his final ball, wouldn't we? If he's getting into advanced positions regularly, and having these opportunities, and you'd wonder if you put him in a situation that Keshi Anderson was in against Stockport, where he gets in behind a couple of times and gets to the byline and pulls out 2 really good crosses. The pressure on Laird to do that would be immense.
Yeah, I did speak to Davies about Laird's final ball and end product. And he said they both acknowledge that's something that has to be improved. That obviously when he gets into those positions, he does need to get goal contributions, because this season, if you think, especially at the start of the season, he was getting into some ridiculously good areas, and the final ball wasn't always there. I don't know whether he's got a registered assist in League One. The one I can think of is the Alfie May goal at Wycombe, where he effectively, there was that brilliant touch from that Bielik pass and he got in behind. And he put it into an area and it ricocheted around before May prodded it home. But I don't think that'll go down as an actual assist for Laird. But yeah, that's the area he really does need to improve. He's the obvious choice for me. I just think it suits the system. I'm not sure about other changes, Brian. I was thinking, you got me thinking about Dykes, but can you leave Alfie May out after he's just scored 2 goals and had his best game in ages?
Well, I mean, Chris Davies is perfectly willing to leave Alfie May out, isn't he? You know, Alfie was scoring a goal a game, wasn't he? And then Jay arrived, and you know, his participation became much more frequent. And when he did play, it was kind of out of position. I know Chris Davies would probably rankle with that assessment, but I don't think I'm quite there in terms of playing Dykes yet. I mean, there is a case, and I kind of believed it now when I was saying it. If you're asking me to predict what will happen, I don't predict a Dykes call-up. There's no way in the world they leave Stansfield on the bench, I don't think. Then it becomes a choice of Dykes or May up front. What are you asking me to predict? I would predict that Alfie would play, but it wouldn't surprise me at all. I could definitely see the logic in Linden playing.
I'm with you. I could see the logic. I think it'll definitely come on quite early, probably 60 minutes again, if he's on the bench. So yeah, I don't think there are any other real selection issues, are there? I feel like there's quite a nice balance to Blues at the moment. I'd be surprised if you made any other changes, although it's a busy period. Another game against Exeter in midweek, so effectively another 3-game week. So he could make changes to rotate for rotation's sake, but you would expect those changes to come on Tuesday against Exeter, wouldn't you, in the Cup?
Exactly that, yeah. Because it's what's it called now? The Virtu Trophy.
I've stopped. I'm just calling it the EFL Trophy from now on. I'm sick of sponsors.
Okay. You would imagine, as you said, a change is being made in the EFL Trophy rather than in what is quite an important league game, and another league game where Blues seem to be playing a promotion/playoff contender. Was it you that did a stat the other day that they've now played the top 9?
Barnsley, the last one.
Yeah, and won every game.
Apart from one against Reading.
Won every game. Yeah, and Mansfield top 9.
No, not at the moment.
So they do seem to be playing the sort of top 9, top 10 all the time, and they do seem to handle those occasions quite well. So listen, I am slightly concerned about the Roberts factor. I think he's a proper handful in terms of opposition penalty areas. Blues' defensive set pieces have been quite good. They've been better than quite good. I'd say that after a little bit of a wobble against Wrexham and Peterborough, I think they've been very good since then. Yeah, Williamson tends to contribute. Sorry, go on.
There have been a couple of long throws, haven't there? One at Charlton and one at Lincoln, where they let one bounce and ended up conceding, and at Lincoln, Clara didn't quite head it well enough, and it went straight to Bailey Cadamartri, and they scored. So there's been a couple of long throw issues. That is an area where Blues potentially are a little bit susceptible, I suppose. And with that, I think we've covered everything Barnsley, Birmingham City related ahead of the game. Hopefully, Blues can make it 3 League One wins on the spin and further close that gap on league leaders Wycombe Wanderers. Thank you, everyone, for listening to both of our podcasts this week. We'll be back next week, hopefully toasting another 3 points for Blues. Thank you, Brian, and thanks, everyone, and a big keep right on from both of us.